All right, shalom, salama. Greetings, everyone. Greetings. Welcome to Q2UA discussions. Q2A discussions Friday. What day? Friday. All right. So I have not been on here in a while. And it just takes me a little bit of time to get things up and going. But I wanted to first come on in here and talk about some of the things that has happened with not just the continent but also what has happened over outside the continent. As you can tell, we are in an Israel-Iran conflict. This Israel-Iran conflict, it's easier just to say it's an Israeli Iranian conflict than actually stating that the reality is there is a war, and that war has been brewing since the inception of BRICS. And this war that's brewing is actually a war of the global north and global south, the west and the east, however you want to call that. The the traditional colonizers against the post-colonial countries in one way, form, fashion. I would even argue that Russia had also been colonized under communism. I would also argue the same with the Chinese. Under their post-colonial rule, they went to communism, which was another form of colonization, even though they'll say that they are a quote unquote communist state or communist country. The ideas, the efficacy, the notion of colonization is not necessarily as grand as it once had been. The idea of colonization was to reduce and limit the capacity for people to maximize resource and resource efficiency. I would say that resource efficiency was very underwhelming because there were cases to where you did not have that resource efficiency because the resource efficiency was tied up in the state, and the state would then be tied up in other matters of, well, you can't do this, so we're going to look at that. You can't do that, we're going to look at this, right? There are so many different situations going on where even though they wanted to say that they had some sort of freedom, they really didn't. I think that to me, and for China, the Tiananmen Square incident, things of that nature was kind of the turning point. And that turning point was then maximized with obviously the West's help as the really the new basis of the superpower in this dichotomy. There's two sides. There's always two sides. When you have the dichotomy, you have the two sides. When you have the two sides, it's all of the same coin. But now that same coin has now flipped to the idea of Africa instead of the traditional West. Now you're going to have the East. You're going to have a BRICS. Even within BRICS, you now have African countries. And they'll quickly realize on this totem pole where they actually stand on the BRICS totem pole. You just have to understand this is that lease period, right? You drive the car, it's a 24 36 month lease period. You get it out the showroom, it's nice and fresh, it's been detailed, it's smelling good, it gives you a good little smell for 6 months, maybe 12 months. How you keep it, then at that 12 months, and then it kind of gets broken in. And when it kind of gets broken in, you start to see a little bit of things happen. The oil change isn't really, lasting that long. The fuel efficiency isn't really going. The timing belt starts to kind of, give some clunks, and then you realize that at 36 months you done had a lemon. But then when you try to trade it on in and try to get everything restarted, then you realize you got the lemon. This is what I believe is going to happen with a lot of these nations that have signed on for BRICS. Don't get me wrong. I don't have any issues with BRICS in terms of being able to have some sort of, I would say, economic autonomy, economic dependence, economic self-reliance, or independence and self-reliance. I would say that that's where you have more of your resource control mechanisms that hasn't really been presented before, at least in this context, at least in the context of some sort of a globally integrated trade solution outside of the USD. And now you're now kind of seeing the jettison per se of what that new solution capacity is going to look like. You're now seeing that countries that had the post-colonial, and I'm telling you, the way that this thing worked was that you had to have a hammer to continue to be that hammer as all the other nations had basically suffered. They took a toll pat in World War II. That's the whole reason of the Bretton Woods Agreement. Well, we need to have someone to step on up because Europe is not going to be in that capacity. The UK is not going to be in that capacity. US is your turn. Tag, you're it. Make sure that you keep the dollar dominance, the world order dominance. But they started to understand that we started. I'm going to say we, as in the US, at that time around 2008. You started to see the fissures. And with those fissures, you started to understand that there was, especially with the euro, a contradictory tale. You started to see less support for the US, whether, however that was scripted. But as that was scripted, if it was scripted, who knows? I think everything is scripted. I really do believe that everything that they have. Oh, yeah. Give me just a second. Oh, boy. I guess trolls came through. Thank you, trolls. I guess we're doing something for good. Black fatigue. Oh, boy. See, I let these trolls kind of come in and do their thing because then they always kind of give themselves away in masquerading in thumbnail blackface, and it does become certainly um it's an amusement on my part because as I give my little bit of dictation, I see what they're up to. I look at what they're up to. And I give that little bit of the side eye, and I'm like, oh, okay, okay. They're talking about the Arabs. Okay, okay. They're talking about this. Okay, okay. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. See, you have to be very mindful of how they try to do that gaslight, the slight of the gaslight. You got to be mindful. They try, they try. Oh, wow. I guess they're itching for Q2UA to get on in here. We're back. I guess your wishes. Got a lot to say. Well, maybe I did trigger a lot of people. There you go, niggas. If you were triggered, I want to look. Come on down. Look, I do that for Covenant Awakenings, and I do that here. If y'all want to say something, come on in. I have the StreamYard link. Y'all can. Here it is. But as I was trying to build up that understanding, because not a lot of people had that nuance. They don't understand like that. And yes, that is why the Arab states were really built up. They were built up as an arm of white supremacy. They really were. This is why they're on the fence with everything. Do I tick people off that put me in power? That's the Sykes-Picot agreement. Do I mess with my little fiefdom that they gave me? Because why? Because that is, remember, that's how they get their oil. And it's not just the oil, but that's their economic power. Their economic power then allows for the Arab nations to have their influence within Africa. Remember, everybody got mad when Traore said to Saudi Arabia, nah, you can keep your mosque. Because why? Oh, let me build a mosque. Nah, keep your mosque. That's not really conducive here. Because what were they trying to do? The same type of colonization through religion. In order for colonization to happen, you actually have to have a religious edict and component to it, because you have to be colonized mind, body, and spirit. How much are you colonized? Are you colonized to go to Rome, or are you colonized to go to Mecca? You only have two choices. Are you colonized to the point where you're just going to get whipped on with electric cord chains, subdued to the point where you're literally dying, where you have hot water boiled on you, where you have acid thrown on you? Uh, those are it. That you become imprisoned for standing up to your boss and saying that you don't want to be great and beat every night while they steal your passport so you can't actually even leave. But let me put a mosque here so we can reaffirm white supremacy through religious tactics. Don't get it twisted. They work off of that too. They know who's Ottomani and they know who's actually Shemitic. Yeah, that's a bigger power dynamic. And that's not going to be appropriate here for Q2UA. But understand that now most African nations understand this. And most African nations are beginning to realize this. And that's why, if you are losing your system of control, then you have to now start banning nations. I was still waiting on the Negus person. But I'm going to get into this article because I'm not going to be long here. "36 countries." Let me go to the all the way to the top. Trump administration demands action from 36 countries to avoid travel ban. What do you think that action is? You got to post beefdom, fealty. And I'm going to give you the timing of this because the timing, let me tell you this, updated June 17th. What was going on June 17th and what's going on today, June 20th? Well, you have an Israeli-Iran conflict. So let's put everything in the context here. So they're saying that within 60 days that they're going to be added to a travel ban, which is now 12 nations, and they're going to target 25 out of the 36 in Africa. However, now when you look at this, let's take a look. Mauritania, Niger, Ghana, Ivory Coast, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why is that? Because they just signed the deal with Russia. Antigua and Barbados. Benin. Only one I don't see on here is Togo. But that will be next. I see basically every country. They even have Nigeria on here. Nigeria's slipping. Ivory Coast. Senegal. Cameroon. That's literally the Gulf of Guinea. That's mainly a lot of the west coast of Africa, save Guinea and Togo. They even have Sao Tome and Principe on here and Cape Verde. Why do you think they have that? Maybe just a little too much history. You have to make sure that as people are ignorant, you can't take them to the power source of understanding knowledge. This is what you have. And of course, you're going to have on in here Burkina Faso. That's a given. I think Mali was already banned. Oh, Equatorial Guinea. Yep. And Togo. Sorry, Togo was already there with Sierra Leone. So basically, yeah, Chad, Republic of Congo. Yeah, this is reaching most of Africa. That's almost half of Africa. That's banned, including Tanzania. Wow. A lot of these countries are saying no. That's the reason that they had the ban. So if you had the ban, chances are you don't have a they may have said no to the tariffs. You even got St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis. Man, they're banning even folks from the Caribbean. Do you see why? Do you see what's happening? I don't think you all really see why or see what's happening. Remember what I told you, the Pan Africanisms and everything else? You have to understand the components of white supremacy. You're going to have the nice side of white supremacy, and then you're going to have the not so nice. Do you understand that that's why, like, literally, Iran had said, duplicitous? You know, the funny thing is, yesterday when I was on Covenant Awakenings, I had said Iran probably sent that flight to Oman because they're probably asking Israel, or they're probably telling Israel, here are the conditions. We'll tell it to you, the United States, because you're basically acting in Israel's stead. And if you listen to the foreign minister, he said Israel and the United States are one and the same. They're going to take responsibility. So if they're one and the same, then guess what? There has to be a strike by the United States. Because technically speaking, they're already drawing the framework from the Iranian foreign minister. He's already drawing the framework of why they are justified in striking U.S. citizens, i.e., military bases, i.e., troops, i.e., embassies, even. What are they doing? They're framing to the whole world, this is why we're going to be able to strike them. That's why Trump was saying 2 weeks. Trump wasn't saying 2 weeks because he was scared. I don't think that he was saying that because he was scared. I think that he was saying that because um, he's going to try to see what they're going to do within 2 weeks, because they're now creating the framework. And so then when Iran strikes, because Iran is saying, look, we were duped into this. That was very duplicitous. They are one and the same. They are, in fact, one and the same. And yes, I believe that that gives cover for the European people to leave the country. Yes, Cynthia. Cynthia, yes. Leave as quick as you can. Remember, they were already given that order. But as they're leaving now, understand what they're trying to do to the rest of the world. Don't come here to the United States. This is a classic. This was a classic time to be a hermit country. Tariffs didn't work. Where's the trade deals? We're going to have all these trade deals in 90 days. We're getting ready to come up on 90 days in less than 2 weeks. And then that trade deal, and that liberation day, within 90 days, a war had started. A lot of these European countries, they're scrambling to get up on out of there. Their hardline colonialization wasn't working anymore. See, what they don't tell you is that a lot of those places, especially in Jordan, especially there in that Eastern Mediterranean nation, a lot of those places were traditional Greek roots that got folks over to Africa. If you look up the story of Constantine's mother, and if you look up the story of Hadrian, I mean, from actual European sources, nothing that you'll find on Chat GPT, they will even have in their history books how they renamed the cities over in the Middle East, i.e., the Eastern Mediterranean nation, to fit in line with the cities that were over there in East Africa. That was traditionally biblical cities. It was all renamed. It was actually all renamed by Hadrian. And then you had a pilgrimage by Constantine's mother. You can find all this. You can look at Dante Fortune's website. You can look at Teo. Look at BHITB. They have that all there. So I'm not saying anything that's not accurately historical, factually correct. I even have pictures of the USAID sites. You want to know what USAID was used for? To keep the artifacts of the lies intact. Y'all don't even understand how this conspiracy has literally been going on for generations because you can't fathom that. From empire to literally empire, from world ruler to world ruler. Oh, they made sure just because, the power structures may have shifted in different places throughout Europe and now here to the United States. Oh, best believe they were keeping everything the same. You can't tell me that this is not Rome 2, 3, 4.0. It is. It just It's just that the way that things had to fan out had to be a little bit more sophisticated, because every single time something would happen, they then weakened. The system weakened, the structure weakened. But the edicts of the emperors still remains the same, even to this very day. The eagle still remains the same, even till this very day. It may not speak Latin anymore. Instead of Latin, it changed to English. Structure still remains the same. But why is the Middle East conflict important? Because those were traditional lines of communication. Those were traditional ground roots and ground elements that would do what? That would get into Africa by way of what? The Nile. By way of what? The Red Sea. Those have always been strategic locations to do what? To get in Africa, to get into sub Saharan Africa. So now they're losing their power and their influence. And guess what's going to end up happening? All those books, all that writing, all that language that they always would say, it's a lost language, lost to the West, hidden on purpose in the tribes and in the villages. Hidden on purpose, because why? Because if you said the wrong thing, or if you knew the wrong thing, then guess what? You're going to be deleted, because that is how the lie was promoted. Now you understand the depths of what they went through to hide identities. Well, if you don't have that anymore, and people are freely able to travel and talk down and sit down with the Mose chief, and that Mose chief tells you everything because he has all the records, then that does something to a person who's been lied to. You start to feel resentment. You start to feel anger and anguish, because, man, somebody lied. And why did they lie? Who would want to be lied to for generations, for centuries? And to understand how prevalent the lie was, and understand, this is what gets you. This is what gets me. To understand the amount of care that they take to cultivate and ensure that the lie remains, that's unfathomable. I mean, that's unfathomably wicked. You mean to tell me you had all that energy to keep that lie going, and you did not want to bother to tell nobody the truth? Uh huh. Yep. Mm hmm. Yep. 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 And now they got TBN asking, where is the God of Israel? Their God. No, their God is doing exactly what their God is able to do. Because why? Because their God was not the same God as The God of that scripture, the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They let you know they have a different structure, a different system. They have a different God. They'll tell you that. No, there are still languages in Africa that's Hebrew. That's where your Bantu does come from. That is your baseline of the Bantu. So when they do, the folks from that Eastern Mediterranean nation, when they do go into Africa to learn the languages and the customs and the cultures, you got to remember they're still trying to figure everything else out like we are. Remember the Lemba, remember Kohan, Hamadishe, remember all the Lemba folks? Yes. Would you like to be one of us? They're like, no. They're adamant about it. No, no. You need to understand who we are. You need to understand our authority. You need to understand you may have what you have over there, but it's going to transfer back. And when it transfers back, it's going to transfer back in the worst, most violent way possible, because that's how it transferred into your hands with the worst, most violent way possible. Because why? Because that's Obadiah. Do unto you as you have done it to so many. Do unto them. And now they're reaping what they're sowing because now they're slowly turning into a Gaza overnight, over the course of a month. They can't rebuild. Who's going to help rebuild? US ain't got money like that. They're going to really tap into FEMA. They're going to tap into USAID. Companies are losing money and people are losing money. And I'm sorry, not a lot of people are too enthused to be like, here you go. Right after they done seen a genocide unfolding. Do you see that? Who in their right mind is actually going to help rebuild that? They'll say in the heart that they will rebuild. Do you see all these scriptures coming to pass? Do you see all these things happening to that nation, to that area? Now everybody's distancing themselves. Do you see? It used to be cool. They were saying nothing, nothing, nothing. And now, oh, well, we need that peace. Now everybody's trying to run to the hills. Yeah, dude head of FEMA did say, yeah, states are on their own. You ain't got no money from the federal government. Their hypocrisy is found. Now, what does that mean for us? Excuse me. Well, that means for us, we are in some very, very interesting times. We're in a very interesting season. Because why? Because we talked. We stood up and we talked. We stood up and we went and we traveled and we visited with our African brothers and sisters. We supplicated. We came with the plan with them. And now understand they are literally trying to ensure that we get cut off. This is a power move to cut off the slaves. This is all that is. And that's to box them in worldwide. They can't do anything anyway because it was our USAID money that was letting them be what they were going to be anyway. So now they're going to be too poor like everybody else, and they won't be able to travel and they won't be able to do anything. Look, they're thinking that them pulling their dollars is going to cripple African countries, African nations. They really do feel that way. I'm not making this up. They really do feel that way. Oh, they're never going to get ahead because we pulled all of our money, all of our funds. Oh, okay, well, look at all that gold here. Look at all these diamonds here. Look at all these minerals here. All right, well, I guess we're just going to have to work on BRICS pay. Thanks, America. We'll figure it on out. We'll get another alternative system, alternative resources. We'll make these settlements happen. We'll get everything accounted for, and we'll do it more efficiently. Well, that's fine because we already trapped your brothers and the sisters on the continent. They're already trapped. You know, they're thinking they already trapped us here in the West. And that's not true. No, that is not true. Matter of fact, they actually made the door a lot easier for us here in the West. I can tell you all about it. They actually made it a lot easier for us on the West to come with the plan, to understand the plan. Because why? Because of the traditional influences that are not there anymore. Well, I get paid dollar. No, I'm not telling you on this platform. You can come and volunteer at Q2UA. A lot of this stuff I tell you in neodiplomacy.com. All these other platforms that always try to say, oh, you'll get rich and you'll get your money. Man, that's paper dollars. Grow your paper dollars so when it all fails and it's nothing for your paper dollars to fall back on. Well, maybe you'll have Bitcoin, maybe. Maybe you have cryptocurrency, maybe. Maybe you'll have some sort of transportability with your money, maybe. That's why I said the bottom line to all of this is relationship. Relationship builds everything. Do you know that that's what you have in terms of having a State Department? So you can have a relationship to have people honor Bitcoin. So you can have a relationship to have people honor a dollar. So you can have a relationship to have people honor a currency value and valuation. So now you have the absence of a State Department. You have the absence of a foreign ministry or foreign representatives. And guess what that means? That means you no longer have diplomatic statesmanship to encourage the growth of your currency. You don't have it anymore in the United States. That's why their dollar is falling precipitously. That means greatly. That was the whole point of the State Department. Not to go around just dictating terms and things of that nature, but to go around and to build. And they don't have that. I would have to say that over the course of these 2+ years of Q2A and the Q2A enterprise, do you know that we're actually at our most powerful point? I know it's hard for people to understand. Actually, we're very powerful. Now, do you think that people are just going to up and say, here's some money, here's thousands of dollars, millions of dollars? No, they're not. No, they're not. But let me tell you, when our people heard and answered the rally cry of that container, do you not know how important that was at the time that that was stated? Do you see? The Most High had us get that container out right at that time, right at that moment. Because I'm telling you, anything that happened before June, what is that? 12th, 13th. You know what that is? It's called being insincere. You could have done that months ago, weeks ago, days ago. Oh, now we want to get some things on up there. Now you want to do some things? How come you didn't do it earlier? Well, you want to know what? Well, we didn't see the need. Okay. Now they're dealing with a lack of insincerity and a lack of compassion. Those lacks of sincerity and compassion is now backfiring. If you didn't know, we got the drop. If you didn't know that our power of soft power makes you actually powerful. Bombs and weapons can only do so much. Especially when you try to say that your bombs and weapons, especially when you try to overstate your power, which is what they always do. I'm just saying they always do that. Oh, we're so powerful. We're look you ain't got another like this. Look at that. Look at our air defense systems. Look at we got the golden sling dome arm. But now we need other nations to help us, particularly the United States. Help us, United States, help us. Now they're crying for the United States to help because why? Because everything that they had faith in, do you know how much? Do you know how much they were saying, oh, this dome is going to hold and this and that and all this? Do you know? That's all we heard here. Oh, they'll never do that. Because why? They were the best. I'm going to tell you this. If anything, they were the best hype men in history. And you thought Flavor Flav was a hype man. Oh, that was the best hype man-ish stuff in human history. Man, you can't do nothing. You can't. That was the most trash talkingest, over hyping and human history. Look, they're so hyped up. hyped out. They don't even want you taking pictures of Mo of when their stuff gets bombed. Look, Iran's like, man, we're not even firing at night anymore. We're just firing in the daytime. We sitting down with an umbrella and some binoculars. We sipping on some Iranian tea, and we're just watching them things fall. But here's the thing. Would you not show a little bit of compassion and be like, hey, I know y'all are feeling yourself way too much, but y'all ain't stopping none of this thing. Y'all ain't stopping this. Y'all are looking like that boxer that's already gotten his brakes beat off of him in the 8th round, and there's still 4 more rounds to go. But he's just a walking knockout, and you got refs that are mean, and you have your corner man that's mean. They just want to have you just completely annihilated because they don't care. Europe doesn't care. U.S. cares to a point, but not really. They don't care. Man, get on out there because better you, because as soon as he's done beating the brakes off of you, they're gonna come to beat the brakes off of us. So get annihilated, keep taking it for the team. Europe and the US are like, just die in the ring. That I'm not sure about. Honestly, I don't think Iran per se was. Remember, Iran is Persian. They're different. So they're kind of on the steps of the Caucasus. And I say the Caucasus in terms of, let me say this, the steps of the Asiatic plains, Russian Asiatic plains. Russia never took part in the transatlantic slavery or slavery. Now, are there going to be other places and vestiges where that went on? I would say probably. Did it go to the length of these other nations? No. No. Because what ended up happening was that as people would travel, they would try to travel with their quote unquote property. And then when they get to those areas, I know that this was the case in Central Asia when you would experience the tribes of like the Turks, the Uyghurs, the Kazakhs, the Uzbeks, the Kyrgyz, things of that nature, Afghan, they wouldn't they would not indulge in the principles of the European aspects of slavery. Matter of fact, they would actually say that it would be illegal. I know that was for a fact in a lot of those Central Asian countries. Because you have to understand the role of Islam was different in that Medes Persian influenced role of slavery. They would try to have a little bit more of a biblical slash Quranic element to it. Oh, well, they converted, so they're not slaves anymore. What? But I'm coming over here. I'm coming over. In this area, they're going to be slaves once and for all. Well, no, that's not how we interpret Islam. Islam is very distinctly, it's interpreted widely. So then what you have is that you had a lot of folks, especially of African origin, things of that nature, our people, things of that nature. They would be there in pockets. They'll let you know that there would be strangers or, of a strange element in the community because we're everywhere. So don't tell them that, well, slavery was slavery. No, no, no. This was the worst type of slavery. This was a multi generational slavery. It was a slavery of the cruelest order, where you're just enslaving people, people groups for centuries. That doesn't work anywhere else except here in the United States. It didn't work anywhere else. So when they say that there's always been slavery, yeah, there has. I don't I will absolutely 100% agree with that part. However, this type of slavery was the cruelest form of slavery ever in human history. Human history. Human history. And they get mad when you give them the historical constructs of that. Then they say, well, no, it's this and no, it's that. No, here's the thing. Even when you look at the biblical constructs of being an enslaved group, especially when they try to look at Mizraim or Mizer in that biblical context, they tend to stay away from Jasher and other historical books. That's why Rome did that. Because Rome wanted to be the multi generational enslaver of certain groups of people. And they knew who those groups of people were. And that's why you had that edict, that order, which is called the Dum Diversus of 1453. You literally had it. That's in the books, that's in the record books. That's still on the laws today. That's still on the books today. If you don't understand, Rome has the overall authority. That's why every leader in this world, especially in the West, they go to Rome because they're going to the highest spiritual seat of power. That's how this world works. So now understand that's why they're upset, because think about this now. If you're a Saudi and you're getting ready to lose some people, if you're an Emirati, if you're a Bahraini, if you are a Qatari, if you're a Kuwaiti, and you're getting ready to lose people, I still got this oil. How much will I get for someone to come here and help me rebuild? See, when they talk about Joel chapter 3 It's a difference. Well, we bound him here under contract. It was just supposed to be 4 to 5 to 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, an indentured period, a contract period. What are you, a contractor, right? You're indentured. If you're a contractor, don't get that twisted. You're indentured for a what? A specific amount of time, a specific result, a specific goal or product. That's a contractor. You're indentured. So imagine that you lose the war, but you need to make money so your family's not starving. What ends up happening when you are in a third world nation and you have been reduced to a third world country? Well, you got to go on out and you got to start making money so you can bring that back to your family. So then your family can make money and your family can actually live pretty decent. Oh, they do what? Oh, they were lucky enough to get a job overseas. Wow, that's fantastic. You got to remember, they're not going to look at prophecy the same as us. Yeah, they'll say, yeah, we lost, and a lot of people had to leave because they lost. That's part of war. That's what they're going to be looking at. Oh, a lot of people left because it's a part of war. Hey, didn't that happen with the Germans? Didn't that happen with the French? Didn't that happen everywhere? They're just going to think that that's natural. But that's just a natural part of life. That's just a reality. No, I get it. Yeah, that has nothing to do with the Bible. That's what they're going to say. Yeah, we just have to pay back the reparations for war because why? Because who really started this thing in earnest? I told you who really started this thing in earnest. That Eastern Mediterranean nation did. And now what does that do? That literally threw off the shackles of Africa. Because why? Because now these nations, especially these European nations, now they're afraid because why? Because they're in proximity. To who? To the Eastern Mediterranean nation and the United States. Europe is scared. UK scared. France, Germany, they're scared. I probably say that the Germans were probably the most scared because of some other things that's going on and their support. Africa is now able to have a lot more autonomy. Look, when they say all this stuff about, oh, well, they're going to shut down and they're going to crack down and they're going to restrict travel, honestly, it's who cares? And the reality is that they're going to try and say that, but here's the reality: they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it because you want to know why? Because they have to find a source of revenue. Guess what? Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Remember, when they fall, we actually do rise. So guess what? Well, we'll have special exemptions. We'll have special things. We'll have special this. They will. Because why? Because America is not going to cut its nose to spite its face when it comes to making money. Okay, as long as you declare all your taxes. Okay, as long as you declare this. Okay, as long as you. All right. Go fee to travel. As long as you have this enterprise here, you have this thing there. Oh, okay. Matter of fact, would you like to have some grants or anything from foundations? Because whatever helps you. Doing businesses on the continent 2 years ago was like whatever. No, doing businesses right now on the continent, it's like, how can we help you? What do you need? Because why? Because they're getting cut off. A nation won't tell you that they're getting poor. What a nation will do is they're going to pull resources, which they've done and what they're doing, and then they're going to get in a fight, which is happening. It's a really simple equation. I'm not saying anything that's very controversial. I don't think so. If I'm saying anything that's controversial, let me know. But it's not. This is now a fight for survival. I was explaining that back on Wednesday. This is a fight for their survival. They're going to survive. And then as they survive, they're going to be fighting each other. Trust me, that's what's going to happen. No, 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 no. Leave them alone. Leave them, as long as they do that, leave them alone. Well, this is why I teach neodiplomacy.com. That's why I have a neo-diplomatic core cohort. This is why Brother Fast Nickel is also teaching cryptocurrencies. This is why Sister Fatea is also teaching leadership. This is why Sister Shar has a course to help our people understand what it means to survive here. Because we have to train our people here to engage our people on the continent and vice versa. Do y'all know what the biggest thing was for USAID besides grants? What do those grants actually do? Besides grants, what did USAID do? What were those grants used for? What were they always used for? Training and education. Training and education. Do y'all see that? We have to train you and educate you on what we want to show you about the United States. And now, all of a sudden, now that that's gone, what's happening? All of a sudden, people are saying, well, yeah, they used to train us on this. They used to train us on that. Yeah, it's indoctrination. So we have to be able to train and educate because we're going through trying to engage our brothers and sisters with generations worth of indoctrination. Oh yeah, no, look, they're gonna have some sort of exemptions and things of that nature. Don't get that twisted. The US getting cut off from chocolate? Are you kidding? But now what they're trying to say, well, if you do that, we just need to do this. Look, the US already knows that their position's weaker. That's their last position. Well, you can't travel to the United States. Well, okay. Well, don't you want to travel to the United States? Not really. Why don't I want to travel to the United States? So I can get pulled over by the police, and then if I'm there trying to do legitimate business, um, they deport me. So then I'm literally missing for a week because I have no due process because I'll be called an illegal alien. And then when I'm finally able to contact somebody, that's when I'm back to my country or getting on the airplane. Oh yeah, Nigeria's model is done. I had a conversation the other day with someone that we were that I was talking to. I said, "Well, what about Nigeria?" He said, "Don't even look at Nigeria." He said, "Don't even look at Nigeria." I said, "Really? Why?" He said, "They're so fragmented." And that was from the people on the ground there in Nigeria. These are definitely interesting times. Why do you think that tourism has literally plummeted? They still they I was reading some articles. They said here in the United States, they just have ghost planes. They have planes just to fly the planes, just to make it look like people are actually flying them. Because they have to justify still paying pilots. Everything has literally collapsed. Florida, you don't have people at the resorts like that. And now they're having to admit that their economy is collapsing. Canadians aren't coming down here. The homes that the Canadians used to own, they and the Brits and other folks, especially that had money from all these different places around the world, particularly Europe, they're not coming here. They're trying to put their house in the market. That's what's flooding the housing markets. So everybody's trying to sell their homes, and you don't have any people buying. You don't have enough people trying to buy because people are being laid off. There's no certainty in this thing. Look, if America's economy can survive another 6 months, that will be a miracle in itself. I'm just telling you that. That would be a miracle in itself. That's why they have to do the CBDC in less than 30 days. Because honestly, you're looking now, if they don't do it in less than 30 days, it collapses. If Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz for 100 days, that was a rumor. They were saying that Iran could shut down the Strait of Hormuz for 100 days. America would literally fall apart. Because all the trade deals that America has with Europe and everything else, you could take our oil. You could take our oil. Remember all that? Oh, let's blow up the Nord Stream. Remember they're saying all that? Don't do any deals with Russia. Remember they're going after the quote unquote the dark fleet. That was literally just within this month. Remember all these things, these geopolitical things going on? America will supply your oil. America will do this. America will do that. Well, if Europe gets injured with oil, then guess what? Europe is going to want to have their oil sources. What do you think America's going to do? Do you think America's going to make sure that the oil is good for the United States? Absolutely not. They will say, well, we have to make sure that we have law and order. I'm going to give you their terminologies. We have to ensure law and order so then they can do what? So then they can move that oil out of here. The name of the game is to save Europe. It's not to save America. And I know a lot of the quote unquote patriots are like, oh, it's America. No, 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 no. America's design was to be and is to be a multi generational prison for us, for those so called African Americans, descendants of African American slaves, transatlantic slavery. And it's funny because the more that we talk about this every single day, the more that people are realizing, oh man, we got duped. See, they didn't care when the money was good. They didn't care. When we were saying, hey, this thing is not fair. It's getting worse for us. It's getting bad for us. It's really not. Look, do you know that we had to start crying out to the Most High and look how much he delivered. Look how powerful his deliverance was. It's not a question of if the U.S. is going to attack Iran. It's actually not even a question anymore if the U.S. is going to attack. Actually, the question is when will the U.S. attack Iran? We were talking about that 3 days ago. Oh well, if it attacks, if it now it's when it attacks. Well, you got less than 2 weeks. Really? And Iran is not going to capitulate. Matter of fact, the other day, yesterday, Iran now has Chinese ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. They're in the Persian Gulf. They're in the Gulf of Oman. They're in the Indian Ocean. providing intel cover to the Iranians. They're not backing down. Also, you do have Russian frigates in that area. They've been in that area. They're always in that area. They always patrol that area. Their base in Pardis was there up until earlier this year or last year. And now they're over in Libya. Honestly, I believe that Iran is supposed to be in Oman this weekend. I believe that Iran is going to ask for the unconditional surrender of the United States. Let's think about this. Let's game plan this. Remember that Iran had sent their envoy to Oman. Back on Wednesday, I believe. They said, look, we're going to pull up. They pulled up in Oman. They pulled up right there in Muscat. At the same time, Israel just didn't get hit on Wednesday. It got hit on Thursday, too. And it got hit by a cluster bomb, cluster munition. So Israel doesn't have any defense systems. Not only that, I was telling you about how Bahrain and Al Udeid, they cleared out. Naval Activity Station. NAS, Bahrain. At least that's what I remember it as. When I would be there pounding in my desert Marpats as good old Sergeant Copeland. Navy and Marine Corps elements. That's Fifth Fleet, not Sixth Fleet. It's Fifth Fleet. US NAVCENT. That's their forward headquarters element. Part of CENTCOM. Good old Manama. American Alley right off the base. Look, it was so hot. I remember I had me a sea green Toyota Camry, courtesy of the government from, I think, Avis rental car. I was there TAD for a couple of months. It's tour of active duty. In the Army, it's TDY, temporary duty. I remember one day I was walking on out. I had a Lance Corporal with me. He had deployed with me as we were doing our mission. I told him, I said, be careful with them seatbelts. He got burnt by the seatbelt. I said, you all right? He's like, no. He was a brother too, from Miami. I remember that because I used to have to take a shirt, like an oven mitt, and put that and buckle that seatbelt on me, and had that shirt right by my pants so it wasn't burning. The things you learn in the desert. Cutter was interesting too. Aludade, man, that sucker is huge. And just to see that that thing got cleared out. He asked for 2 weeks to get everybody out. He asked for 2 weeks to get everybody out and to try to get their whatever missile systems that they can get on in set up for whatever they can get set up. Because it's not a part of if they're going to strike. It's actually when they're going to strike. And I believe that they're going to say we have our best missile systems because that's not for the Iranians. That's not about that. It's for the U.S. servicemen and women, and not just the U.S. servicemen and women, but also the other countries that are there supporting in whatever capacity as liaisons. Because they're there too, and they're trying to get their reporting so they can understand what's happening. So you got to understand, Trump can't get out of this fight because then it starts to look real bad for these other NATO countries if they can't do what they need to do against Iran. It's not about being right. It's not about being wrong. It's not about being, on the side of genocide or not. This is now on the side of strategic understanding that they have to put up or shut up. And if they don't put up, then the other European nations that are there will see a very strong, flawed strategy, and best believe the European Union will run to China. They won't run to Russia because, they have to keep those appearances. Oh, they'll run to China. And when they run to China, guess what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to meet all the Chinese demands. Part of those Chinese demands will be how they will interact with Africans. Because China's going to get their positive shine. Hey, look, see, the Europeans, they're gone. The Europeans, they have to do this, they have to do that. This is how these conflicts are layered. We don't understand these strategies because they're not going to tell you these strategies. They're not going to employ these strategies. They're not going to tell you this. Yeah, China has to have a win. Remember, China needs those minerals and those resources. They got a lot of people. They got a lot of mouths to feed. So they're going to want to make a statement that, hey, we were here to help Africans worldwide. Worldwide. That's going to be their messaging. Yes, it will be. So, yes, you will now have BRICS influence over Europe. This is about the East and this is about the West. This is the crazy game because now this is a game of chicken. And it's not chicken. They already, look, Iran already knows they're going to get their best shot from the United States. And when I mean their best shot, look, they're not even talking about just the GBU 37s or 57s. They're actually now talking about small tactical nuclear bombs. They're actually talking about that. All options are on the table, including that. Oh boy. Go big or go home, huh? Oh, they're going to do that. They really are going to do that. We didn't realize what all options on the table actually meant. So understand when that happens, guess what? Russia is going to use some of their tactical nukes. We had already said, look, it's going to be on the look. I'm not surprised. None of us should be surprised because we have been stating this for a while. It's going to be the U.S. that uses the nuke first. Again, we already had the precedents. We already had it. Because we had somebody in office that wants to be the greatest president ever. The greatest ever. And he always gets his way. Yeah, go ahead, do it, use it. Yeah, because it's going to be so great. It's going to be bigly. It's going to be boom. And, those Iranians are going to be coming running. They're going to be saying, Mr. President, Mr. Trump, we were wrong. You're so great. You're so bigly. And I'm going to be like, yeah, so are you all ready for peace? And, it's going to be an unconditional surrender. We can laugh, but actually, that's their calculus. We can laugh, but that's going to be their calculus. And when that happens, y'all better have your passports ready. When that happens, I told y'all he opened up the door for refugee status. Y'all were thinking I don't know. I was trying to explain that to you. I don't think the 30,000 bomb bunker is going to do it. That sucker's hardened. Because imagine that you pull that on out and then it doesn't give you the effect. Because if it doesn't give you the effect that you want, then America's legitimacy is done. Those European nations will be out. We are effectively actively declaring war on the United States? No, no. They have bunker busters and they also have small tactical nuclear weapons on the table. Small tactical nukes. They're on the table. You release a nuke, that's bad news at any level. At any level. This is why here at Q2UA, as a nonprofit, we got the container on the way. We're showing love to our brothers and sisters. The final destination for that is Burkina Faso. See, we weren't just here talking and saying things, and we weren't here just running our mouths. We're here doing what the Most High needed us to do for that season. Let me see if I could do this. Give me a second. Let me. I'm trying to see if I can get this. StreamYard has not been happy with some of the things lately. Yeah. Oh, StreamYard is. I'm sorry. They don't like showing these videos. Because then the computer starts getting wonky, man. They just yeah. It got horrible. It got horrible here in StreamYard. Unfortunately, I wish I could share this. Yeah, StreamYard doesn't even want to share any of that stuff. It is bad. They don't like it. The images of showing you all these things, showing you all what's going on, is something that they understand. Because if you have positive reinforcement, if you're showing what victory looks like, they'll show us getting deleted on the streets all day long. But to show the images of a video, that's what they don't like. And that's okay, because you have to understand we have to that's how we battle these principalities. This was never going to be an easy battle. Yeah, I can't even share my screen. That's how bad this is. I can't even share my screen. That's pretty bad. That's how it goes. This is how it goes sometimes. These are some of the videos that I was making. Let me see if I can. This is for a Region 6, but it still supports the container initiative. So let me show you this. But to support the container, I have that link right there. Let me see if I could. Let's see. So I'm just giving you some. These are some of the videos I was just playing around with. This is my artistic creativity. Those are all on my neo diplomacy site. If you all would like to see the video, there's a couple different things that this container is doing right now. It's providing right now. But all that took was for us to come together and move as a people. No matter how big, no matter how small. Because our voice matters, our power matters. Our power matters. You can still support the dream that is being turned into the reality with this container. The container is on the way, it's still at sea. We have about 3 more weeks to get the land portion together from Ghana to Burkina Faso. And we really need your support on that, family. Each and every day that we don't have that together, our dollar slides. I'm just giving you the reality for it. Show people, tell people. Do they want to invest in a place that's falling, or do they want to donate towards the future? I'm telling you, it's a whole lot easier to donate towards the future. Here's the link. Let's continue to get to this goal. We've done an extraordinary job, but now it's going to take your mouths, your voices, to let people know, look, 160 people in here, if you had another to talk to 10, 20 people at the most, 10 to 20 people at the most, let's say that's 2,500 people. 2,500 people. You tell me that 2,500 people couldn't give at least $10? At least $10? $10. You can't even get a value meal anymore at McDonald's for $10. I'm just being serious. For less than a value meal at McDonald's. In this today's society, that's change in a tin cup. Just being honest. This is all on us. Not on me, not on certain people. This is all on us. Are you there to make a difference today? On this, they're celebrating Juneteenth on June 20th. We'll see. Will they celebrate getting a container on out for us? Getting this container, the ground transportation. I have these conversations with the ministers of health. I have these conversations with the folks in the background that's supporting this effort. I said, our people will get this done. They know that this container is on the way. But I said, our people will get this love offering to you all. It will be there. It will be done. Part of the heavy lifting is honestly just opening up your mouth. And really, they shouldn't have any excuses because honestly, what are you going to support? A rogue nation that's now getting payback? Or do you want to support our people over in the continent that's been asking for our help? We have not because we ask not. And let me tell you, they've been asking for our help. You want to talk about jobs? Let's talk about showing gifts. You want to talk about opportunities? Let's talk about showing and proving how we can get things done. And this is it. They want to see this from us. Do we believe in us as much as they believe in us? You have to walk by faith. Faith is an action word. Action. Actions do speak a whole lot more than words. I'll make a post also today. I have a couple of folks. You talk about Juneteenth, this is it. Put your dollars into something that counts. You want to talk about getting hot dog buns, hot dogs, Mountain Dews, baked beans, collard greens. Put your dollar into something that counts. That when the deal goes down, when this ship is sinking, you have somebody that remembers your kindness. To me, that's the best investment that you can have. Someone that remembers your kindness. Do you understand? Nobody remembers transactions. We've learned in this society, everything's transaction. Well, this for that, this for that. Nobody cares about transactions. You don't know what they care about? Love. Man, they did it and they didn't even have to do it. Man, they provide, they didn't even have to do it. Thank you, Linda Graves. If we could have 100 people donate, just we could have 15 people, or excuse me, 150 people donate just like you. The question is, why can't this get on out to our community? The question is, why can't this be shown to our community? Why can't this be shown to our family, our friends, our loved ones? Because I'm telling you, the people of Burkina Faso, man, they know that we can do this. Isn't that awesome to see that people are rooting on us? Because the reality is, we do this now, then we have things to do in the future. Remember, we got something to build towards. This is why they're scared. They got rubble. Can you help us build? You know what? Africa has been calling my name, and I got some things on over there. And good luck with you. I'll be praying for you. I know the soil's not contaminated. I know that these radions and radiation ain't. I think I'm gonna go chill over there for a minute. I may be back. I'm just leaving that door open. Okay. Hallelujah. This is the foundations for the generations. I'm telling you, family, I wish I could tell you everything that is happening on the continent because understand Burkina Faso opens up more doors than we can even imagine or realize. There's going to be a time where the resources of monies or funds will not be enough. It's going to be the resource of your wealth of knowledge. They'll be telling you, don't worry about your dollar. We need to know, how do you do this? How do you work on that? How do you make this? How do you work on it? That's what happens next. What we're showing is a love offering. Are you genuine? Do you really love me for me, or do you love me for what I have underneath my feet? That's why I told you. These other people, oh, we got to invest in Africa now, and we want to try to encourage Pan Africanism now. Why? Because they're losing. We want to help you now. Let's help you develop. Because why? Because they're losing. The time for helping Africa is right now, and it shouldn't be seen as a negative because they're losing. I don't know about you, but when I saw that video, when I shared that video on Covenant Awakenings, that made me feel good. You're a bit late. And I would say, just like what allegedly Trump told Putin, you don't need to worry about Africa. You need to worry about what's happening in America first. Or, as I rephrase that, don't worry about Africa. You just need to worry about what's happening in America. You don't need to worry about Africa. Don't worry about it. You ain't got to worry about nothing. We'll get that taken care of. But don't worry. We'll get that taken care of. But can we see what's going on? Don't worry about it. Can you tell us what's going on? Don't worry about it. That is above my head, sir. I'm sorry. That is above my head. Oh, hallelujah. All right, I got to get up on out of here. Thank you all for tearing with me. I ran a little late. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm a bit tired. I'm not going to lie. That I'm a bit tired. So I thank the Most High that I was able to come through here and share just a little bit with you with Q2UA. Thank you all for your support, family, for Q2UA, for the general fund, for these containers, for what we do, family, because it has been awesome. You are helping with this dream. This is a dream for our generations, for our families, as we're able to now produce the critical infrastructure and economic development. This is a big deal. Hallelujah. So with that said, family, you all have a blessed one. If there's anything else that comes up, anything crazy that comes up, you can see me. I'll probably jump on Covenant Awakenings if there's any issues, concerns, things pop on off. Cause I'm only gonna be here for a little bit because I gotta get to my bug out location just in case we have uh 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 a hits the fan moment, an HHTF, in case I have to drink some moose milk and be up in the Canadian wilderness because I'll be learning some new words. Holy cow. Because I'm not going to have a normal C Norman or a Norman C normal. All right. I got to get up on out of here, family. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful Shabbat. Most high willing, I'll see you all on Monday on Covenant Awakenings. And with that, you all have a blessed one. Shalom.